Welcome to Grassroots Self-Treatment. I'm Esther Smith and this is Eva Kauffman, and we're glad that you joined us today for this kit designed exclusively for the younger adult, all the way down to teenagers, maybe even younger, and up into your 20s, who knows, whatever, 30s. We all could use this. And the bottom line is that what we want to deliver to you today are the tools and skills and strategies to maintain a really healthy body globally, to get to know your body, have some internal awareness, understand what good alignment is, transfer that not only in your exercises, but out to sport and out to life, so that you avoid wear and tear, you avoid compression and issues that come as a result of us not using our machine according to how it was designed. So this is the stuff that when I get clients that come to me and they're a little bit broken, they're like, man, why couldn't I have learned this when I was in my teens or in my 20s? That would have helped a lot. And I feel the same way. I had to go to PT school and a bunch of continuing education and come see Eva a ton to learn all of this information. And so we want to deliver that to you in a nice little package. So stick with us. This is going to feel different. We're making this a kit for you. It probably won't be like anything else you've done or seen. And so enjoy it, be a part of the process. And then as you move forward, pick bits and parts of it to use in your daily life. And then the big thing is, does this transfer to function and to life to make you move and feel better? Okay, you guys, so this is the part of the kit where we're going to discuss posture and alignment and really help you to learn about your human machine and how it should work. What you need though is some open space, a little bit of a mat. You need a static strap, a full-length foam roller. This kind of little half foam roller is awesome. And then a chair to be able to sit in for this little segment. And what we're going to do is just get started with understanding how to orient your body against gravity, standing vertically. The thing that you need to be aware of is what your feet are doing first of all, because they're your foundation and there's what really is interacting with your environment. And so you want your feet oriented straight ahead. You want your feet planted under your hips, which is kind of the center of your thigh, not out on the wide edges of that and not super narrow either. It's like halfway in between your thigh, basically. And orient those feet straight ahead. And then the most important thing to be aware of is what's happening from this side view, that you want to form a vertical plumb line with your whole body. Because you can see here, like this kind of posture is like a zigzag of lines and curves and bends. And our structure is really designed to be stood as vertically as possible. So if we reference a few points on our body, this will really help us identify that vertical line. The first is to find our outside hip bones. If you feel around on your outside hip pelvis and you kind of swivel your thigh, you'll feel this bone that pops in and out. That's your hip socket, the outside of it. So that's a reference point. You want that outside hip bone to land right over your outside ankle bone. So if we have a little plumb line here on Eva, we should see, yeah, pretty good, right there. So a lot of us live with forward hips. Go ahead and do that, yep. So you probably will find that you in fact need to sort of float your hips backwards to land that hip center right over that outside ankle bone, okay? Knee should land somewhere in the middle of that too, so that the knee, hip, and outside ankle bone are all on that vertical plumb line. If your knees tend to bend when you stand, try to get them straight. Try not to hyperextend them and throw them back behind vertical. So you need to find that nice vertical knee position there. Good. Try to relax your quad muscles, make sure they're not squeezed up when you're standing, but let your kneecaps drop down. And then we'll go upstream a little bit and we'll look at what the upper body's doing. The shoulder center should land right over that hip center, knee, ankle. So if we again find that strap and we take a look, how's she measuring up? Pretty good. Maybe her hips could go back a little. Good. And then if you find that your shoulders are way back here, maybe it's because your rib cage has popped forward and it needs to come down and sort of be gathered into your core muscles to get that rib cage over your pelvic cage. So kind of figure that one out for yourself and then see what your ears are doing. And this is probably the thing that fails the most on this young population, is this forward head business. And you've seen the older people with the hunch and the big hump back there, and nobody wants that. And so you gotta come out of that, and you gotta tuck your chin back probably, pretend like a string's being pulled up from the crown of your head, or like you're listening to something behind you and you wanna hear a secret, and it kind of perks your ears, and that usually brings your chin back in line. Now, what if you wanted to get on your phone right now and text? Does it have to be like this? Or could you stay vertical? And could you figure out how to look down without distorting your vertical plumb? And it actually comes from spinning at this ear dowel, that your head, like a bowling ball, can swivel on like a little pedestal. And it has that ability to look down without everything kind of coming with it. So practice that, not only texting and doing the phone thing, but also when you're studying and doing your book work and typing too, that you have this ability to hinge like you're gonna draw this short little couple inch line. If you had a pencil sticking off of your nose, that you can rotate and hinge without everything kind of falling apart. So that'll really help you to avoid neck pain, headaches, all kinds of things that come from that distortion of our spine. So awesome. So now we're gonna take this kind of vertical us, and we're gonna move it a little bit and try to just understand kind of how our bits and pieces move. And so the first thing is we're gonna do this kind of forward fold and peel. This should feel really good on your spines and on your neck. Eva's starting with her head dowel and rotating that nose down, like she's drawing a pencil line down, and then letting everything just kind of peel apart. And you'll find that each little bit and part of your spine, you have so many little stacked vertebrae, each of them can articulate and move. In this case, they're kind of all opening and kind of fanning out and gapping. And then when she comes back up, she's gonna start that energy from her hips pulling her up. And each little stack of plates is gonna kind of collapse back on itself. But let's not use the word collapse. Maybe that's not a good thing, because when you're up, there's a decompression, and there's this idea that you're standing into the ground, but you're also lifting away from the ground at the same time from your center, which we all want a strong core. So we're gonna start talking about that, and we're gonna really get some good core exercises coming through in a few little segments. So take one more roll down. Feel how your backs of your legs can kind of let you roll down, how you can lengthen through your calves and hamstrings as your spine sort of has this weight to it. Your arms just drape. They're hanging like little rag dolls. And you get to articulate, flex, and open, get a good hamstring stretch, let it all go, decompress. But then there's some strength on the way back up. Don't just fling yourself back up, but pull yourself back up from those hips and buns and pulling up. Awesome. And restacking. So you went off neutral, just find your way back. Let's look at some squats, because squats go bad on us a lot of times. In our modern culture, we squat infrequently. And if you're an athlete, you're gonna need to probably get into those athletic stances and squat. And we want you to hinge the way you're supposed to hinge. And so you protect your knees and you protect your hips and your back. So the first thing about a squat is that we have this ability to hinge and fold at our hips, that a squat doesn't have to be this kind of collapsing and rounding of the spine to get down, but it can be that the spine stays in its kind of plumb line shape, and then you can start to fold and crease at the hips and go down into a nice squat while still keeping your back relatively straight and protected and head nice and tall and long coming out of the neck. So a couple of those, we're looking for this ability to kind of sit back, keeping our heels down. We don't want to get stiff in our ankles and not have that ability. If you look at like a little infant or a toddler, you'll see that they have the most fantastic squat. And we all end up just kind of losing that over time because we sit so much and we're never really squatting. So squats are really good for general range of motion. Let's face them and show them that knee tracking. That when you squat and you descend, you really want your knees to track right over your second toe. So there's a little bit of this kind of push out of the knees as you descend. If you come back up, Eva, and you show kind of a bad squat, yeah, you'll see that the knees will dive inward. Not great on the knees over time. That causes a lot of problems, especially among young athletes. And then coming up, good. One more. Getting that track, almost like your knee and your ankles live in the same trough, and it has to stay in that trough as you bend and straighten. So those squats are great. So now we're gonna come to sitting. And this is probably my biggest pet peeve. People call me the posture police for a reason, because I'll come and bust you if I see you sitting like this. Because one thing is it's just not great on the spine. The other thing some people might argue is it's not super aesthetic. So we're going to kind of try to optimize our posture, mostly for the health, because that's the most important thing of our body. So you're going to come up onto your sits bones, and you're going to find those little bony prominences at the base of the pelvis. And you want to sit right on top of those guys. You don't really want to be dumped off the back of them. And you don't need to be super tall and kind of hyper erect. You know, my mom always said, sit up straight, pull your shoulders back. And that's actually not the best advice. Sitting up straight's great, but not the pulling the shoulders back. Just let your shoulders hang on you like loose, heavy drapery. All right, and then orienting those sits bones is a great way to just find neutral pelvis, neutral spine. What are your ribs doing? Are they jutted forward? Or can you kind of pull your pubic bone back to the back 12th rib back here? Zipper that up. There's actually a muscle system, your iliopsoas, that does that. It can kind of bring that all in and contain you so that you have this nice torso that's like a tree trunk. And it's not kind of have these like zigzags and edges and bends. Same thing for your head and neck. What's it doing? Is it way out here? Or do you need to have that kind of perky listening ear thing go on where it brings your ears right over in line with your shoulders? Good. Just do some rotations there and just making sure that you have full rotation of your head and neck without really tugging on your shoulders. Shoulders stay heavy and draped on your trunk of your torso. And then we're going to see, can you maintain that nice, clear, crisp spinal alignment and fold one leg over the other, guy style, figure 4. Awesome. Without dumping or getting pulled. If you're really pulled tight and you just can't do it, you might have to sit more elevated, like on a little like pillow or something, and get up so that you can actually still keep your spinal alignment. Now, you're going to place the shin on the knee. This foot's going to be pulled into an L shape, and you're going to try to untuck your buns even more, dialing in that pelvis, poking those sits bones back out behind you, and it's going to put a big stretch in your hip, in your buns. And it stretches this muscle that gets really tight on us when we sit a lot. For a lot of us, that causes low back pain and hip pain and dysfunction. Athletes get really tight there. So you want to stretch that guy out, especially because we just are going to be sitting a lot in this day and age. And then go ahead and switch sides. Great. So hinging forward, keeping that ankle in an L shape. Can you move through your pelvis? It's sort of like you're rocking your pelvis on your ball and socket joint of your hip instead of kind of collapsing and rounding through the spine and doing it as a spinal thing. So that was just a little tour of sitting alignment, but also an awesome stretch that you can do while you're sitting if you find yourself there. So then we'll go on to the ground and we'll lay on our backs. So lying on your backs now, this should feel good. Hopefully you don't feel too pulled and tugged on if you're out straight. Go ahead and lengthen those legs out and just see how you feel. We're dealing with younger bodies. If the older you get, sometimes you're strung away from the floor. You don't really want a lot of hollow space under your back. So I'm not saying to really pressure yourself, but just kind of find that trunk-like torso again. Knit your ribs down and in. Stand through your legs a little bit, active in your lying here. And then if you need a pillow or something to raise your head, that's great. You just want your ears to the level of the rest of your spine. We're going to do a little kind of introductory core work and some leg motion without distorting our spine, just like we did in sitting. So we're going to have both knees bent. And let's just say you place your hands on the fronts of your pelvis. And you find those little pokey hip bones that stick out. You want those to stay level and not rock and roll any which way as we're moving our legs. That tells you that your spine is staying pretty quiet and it's kept in neutral. You can also imagine that you have a little container of water, like a little dish of water here, and you don't want that water to slosh around in any direction. So keeping that still water, can you just lift one leg off of the ground, just keeping the knee bent? Good, and slack that leg, like let it just be. The knee doesn't have any action, it's a hip action. And to lift the other leg, you're going to push down through the one that's on the ground, and you're going to lift up, and that knee just stays nice and slack and relaxed. These are called pistons. And you're starting to realize that maybe it's nice if I breathe in as I lift my leg because it helps it be more effortless. Maybe as I exhale, I feel like there's like this belt tightening around my mid-waist. That's your core muscle starting to work for you. And you're pushing down. Maybe as you push down, you feel that back hip working to stand into the ground like you're putting a footprint in wet sand. And then just alternating one more time on those pistons. Good. Okay, one more lift, slack knee, just so your quad isn't super dominant. Good. And then we're going to take these out into some slides. So you're just going to slide one leg out. Can you do that without dragging your spine along for the ride? Can you keep that kind of vertical lift and that belt around your mid-waist as you stretch one leg out and the other leg out? Great. One more. Great. 2 feet down now, we're going to teach you a bridge. And this is the start of a lot of core exercises. So we want you guys to be familiar how to bridge right and with the right engagement. So the first thing is to identify those little sits bones that we found on the chair, those little bony knobs. You're going to find those and you're going to peek them up towards the backs of your knees or up towards the ceiling or to the wall out in front of you. And as they peek up, that peels your tailbone off of the ground a little. Keep standing through your feet and engaging and letting the kind of motivation to this action come from those sits bones, kind of doing that upward curl. But it doesn't mean that you need to clench your buns really hard or like thrust your pelvis up forward. It's just sort of this soft peeling away of the spine and then peeling back down. One vertebrae at a time. So that again, like we did in that standing roll down, you feel that articulation of the spine, the fact that it should undulate and not be rigid. You guys are catching yourselves at just the right time to not get stiff like the rest of us that didn't get this knowledge. You're going to keep that spine moving like a spring, dynamic and undulating so that it functions the way it's supposed to. It gets hydration and it, you don't get the wear and tear. I see all these people coming in with discs that are dried and crushed and blown out and there's vertebrae that don't have their space anymore. A lot of that is how we've used our body. It's not just that we live under gravity all the time. So those are bridges, and we'll do some other stuff in bridging a little bit later on. But right now we're going to flip onto hands and knees and just see what we look like when we're on our hands and knees. So the big thing here is just that your shoulders are the place where your arms attach to your trunk. And if you're collapsed and kind of not organized through there, you can see how the spine gets distorted in this. So what Eva's going to do is she's going to press her hands into the ground, she's going to straighten her elbows, and she's just going to push the floor away so that she gets really broad, and she sort of nests her sternum up into her shoulder blades that live on the back like two wings. And that's going to be a really strong position from which to maybe like lift one arm. Yeah, and there's no collapse. She's quite still here. She just maintains a tabletop like I could eat dinner right here. And she can switch arms. If she didn't maintain that, watch what will happen. The shoulder blade slides into the spine and there's a collapse. The tabletop is distorted. So come back up into that. Yep, the neck gets kind of crunched, tall neck, kind of tractioning out through the bottom of you to the top of you. And so just a quick look at that quadruped position. I think you guys might be a little curious about how to set that up. And then let's go on to our tummies. And there's a lot of great strength work. If you feel like your posture is not awesome, you feel kind of weak in your back, a lot of times younger adults that come see me feel like they can't hold themselves up and they sort of, they're at piano lesson or something and they get back pain or, doing homework or whatever. And it's just because we haven't maybe spent enough time to strengthen these guys in the back. So we want to start to get to know what we can do with that, and we'll tour through that a little bit with Eva in a second. But let's also see what happens with our legs when we're on our tummies. Can we get some strength through this back hip musculature? It's so important that we have these developed glute muscles to carry us when we're standing, walking, and running and propelling ourselves with all the fun stuff that we love to do. And so one thing that you're going to try to do here is just make sure that you try to find that pelvic orientation again. If your booty's kind of really raised up towards the ceiling and you feel like you're shoved onto the ground, maybe for you, you need to have those sits bones kind of pin themselves to the backs of the thighs energetically, or you kind of point them down a little bit. And it just lengthens out the low back. You don't want to flatten out that lumbar curve. There should be a curve in there, but you want to decompress it and orient it in neutral, not hyperextension like that. We can do a leg lift on our tummies by doing that little snap of the bun to the back of the thigh and then lifting from there and reaching super long through the leg. And that should feel really good to activate this back line. We don't use it enough in our modern society, and so we get kind of the saggy butt syndrome, I think I see a lot. And so you want the perky butt. Good. So lifting from that butt thigh and then nice and long through there. And that's going to develop some really great strength and kind of coordination, so that honestly, this is you walking. This is you pushing the ground back underneath you and walking with a strong backside for that. Great. Okay, so I guess we'll just come back up to standing real quick and just finish off a little bit of balance. So we're gonna work a little bit on balance here, and I'm not sure how relevant that seems to you right now. You might see your elderly relatives or people around that they have balance issues, but in fact, it starts to happen when we're young. If we don't use it, we lose it over time. And what I see a lot in the younger population are things like chronic ankle sprains, especially among athletes. And so we wanna have really good foundational balance from our feet all the way up and know kind of how to control that and play with it a little bit, even now. So Eva's gonna balance on this half roll this way. And she's just gonna put one foot on, and she's gonna find that foot alignment where her foot is pointed pretty much straight ahead. If you draw a little line between the center of your heel and your second and third toe, and you orient that on a straight line forward, that'll be a nice neutral anatomical position. And she's just getting her balance here. She's gonna balance with two straight legs and just like hover that other one like it's standing right next door, but it's floating in the air. And get used to that sensation, the wobbliness of the roller. That's okay. That's your body learning actually, and you're giving it a challenge and it's having to react. And then let's see what you think about maybe closing your eyes. Yeah, see what happens. Did you fall over? Did you have to take a step? That's all fine. What you want to do is try to get to the point where you can maybe hold that for like 30 seconds or even a minute with eyes closed. The wobbliness will be there. You're never going to quiet this down completely. Let's switch sides. Good job. But you've got to challenge it. And this is the way that you can avoid ankle sprains, is you have to teach your brain to be able to respond better to uneven surfaces, because ankle sprains usually happen when we kind of collapse into our terrain, right? And so if we had better reaction, your body would actually pull you out of that before you damage tissue. So go, hovering, and then let's try eyes closed. It's hard. I can hardly do it. But when I practice it a little bit more, I definitely am able to maintain that longer duration without so much loss of balance. So play with that one. It's pretty fun with the half guy. And then we're gonna do some standing footwork. This gets us into a little bit of some Pilates. And we're gonna take a V position with our feet now. So out of that neutral, which is fine, right? Because we can do that, but we can always return to what we want when we're like locomoting, for instance. You want those feet straight ahead. You wouldn't wanna walk around so much with this V position because it distorts our tracking and it makes us use our parts in ways that might create wear and tear over time. So a little narrow V position, heels together. And we're gonna go through this standing footwork series that Joseph Pilates designed, and it's for balance and it's for leg strength and foot strength. So Eva's gonna kind of walk us through this sequence. What you're gonna do first is bend your knees softly, not super deep. Okay, have that knee bend and then lift your heels, keeping them together, lift them off the floor with heels lifted, straighten through your knees. Keep the heels lifted until they're straight, knees, and then poke your heels as if you had little spikes or nails on the bottom of them down into the floor. Two more like that. Bending knees, lifting heels, raising, straightening, going tall through the crown of the head, and then lowering the heels down with slow control. One more. Knees bend, heels lift, straight knees, and return. Let's just reverse that real quick. Coming up and rising with now straight knees, heels lifted, heels together, bending the knees, sending those heel spikes down, straightening the knees. One more like that. Sending straight up like you're getting ejected out of water. Good, bending the knees, heel spikes go down, knees straighten. Return to your vertical standing alignment. Find your feet parallel for a second for me. Awesome. See how you feel. Do you feel different than when you started this kit? Hopefully you have a better understanding of how to range yourself in all these different planes in space, and you can carry that with you to your sport or to your life so that you do a bit better about preserving your body and having a little bit more of that uniform development. We're gonna be moving into some really great stretching for you guys and then an awesome strength set. So we hope you like it.
Okay, welcome back, you guys and gals. We're gonna do a little section on the floor that is designed to give you some tools to stretch and open up, which might not seem so necessary. If there's any one thing I'd like to give to my teenagers, is the ability to use this foam roller, which is such a useful tool, whether you are an athlete or a dancer, or you spend a lot of time at the computer because that's your thing. You want to get out on the roller and use it because it's like a little massage. And I don't know, my 15-year-old loves to get massage. So you're gonna lay the roller lengthwise, you're gonna lay on it with your spine. So sit on the front end of it, lay it back. Can we move you this way just a hair, Esther? Yeah, and then, yeah, so you got some room, you wanna have some space on your floor. This is an awesome way actually at the end of your school day, college day, you've been sitting in classroom, whatever it may be, you've just had a hard practice. So you just want to be able to suspend your spine up on this. Feels super nice, and already just by having your arms open to the side like that, you're starting to get an opening across the chest. And then you can just kind of noodle around with your arms, you know, pretend you're in the snow when you were a kid, making snow angels, coming all the way down by your hips. And I tend to use the floor as my guide, and then I try to stay as close to the floor as I can. Now, some of you might be really super flexible, and what you want to be paying attention to is actually giving your structure a little bit of support, particularly up in the shoulder as you pass up overhead. So you don't want to be like a rag doll, not like a floppy rag doll, and instead just being a little bit more activated through. So that's going to be my job, is to try to give you a little bit more energy through the whole body and this posture that we've been working on. So maybe just one more of those as you get a nice full over the top of the head, kind of like you're reaching from this end of the room to the other, like you're a human hammock. And then you're gonna end up with your arms out to the side. The back of the hand is just gonna be on the floor. And then you're gonna see if you can take the roller a little bit off center of the spine. Just by steering your knees to the right, the roller might kind of slip slide over to the right shoulder blade. And you're gonna do that a few times. And these are just suggestions for you to basically noodle around on the roller. You know, get to know how it could be your friend. And as you shift from one side, what do you feel different than when you go to the other side? You know, typically you're going to kind of reinforce the stretch under one side of the chest and so forth. So if you are, you know, active with your upper body, this can feel really nice. If you can come out of that posture and start to have that be more of your friend over time, that would be even better. One other little tool here is if you were to kind of slide toward the top of the roller, and if you're that person who tends to get headaches, or you know that you have some interesting posture with your head neck zone, then you might be able to release some of that musculature that comes up from your neck and shoulders and into the base of the skull just by putting your head at the top edge of the roller up there. So that's just a little bit of a nice tool. Kind of want to feel like you have a heavy head, and you're just giving your little attachment points a little massage up there. So that's how you might use the roller lengthwise. This next little segment we do, so you're going to kind of just, like a beached whale, roll yourself off to the side of the roller. Now you're going to use the roller as a massage tool for your hips and legs and spine and butt and all those great things. And we call this first little part a little trip around the hip. So orient the roller kind of perpendicular to you, and then sit on one end of it. So we're gonna sit on the right end of it. Your left thigh, back thigh, is gonna be on the roller. Your right butt's gonna be off the roller. So right now you can follow along with Esther. You're just gonna roll up and down the back of the leg. Not often a lot of sensation through here, sometimes a little awkward, but you're gonna try to work your way through that. And then you're gonna pause with your self up on top of the roller, and then you're going to move a little bit side to side so that you're really getting a chance to what we call cross fiber the tissue of the back of the leg up high, where some of those attachment points are coming up into the pelvis. All right, so after you've done that a few times, you're just going to start to roll toward your left and come onto the side of that very same leg. If you take your free leg and cross it over and stand in it, right? You're going to go move up and down the side of your leg. Right. So now we're coming into, and this is the zone for those of us active young adults that really tend to get super tight. And if you were to really continue to roll till you get toward the knee joint, at the knee joint. A lot of our strong leg muscles that we might use in our sports or in our dance tend to come together they come together right down here by the knee. So you want to kind of do these little small motions, and if you find a place that's like, oh, super painful, you want to try to hang out in that and just unload using that front leg, which was the point of that crossover, really. And if you start getting free enough, you'd actually take that top leg, pop it over the top, right? That's much more body weight onto your legs. But then you can quickly kind of roll toward the front edge of or the front corner of your thigh, and then get into that place where you have your hip pocket up high here. There's a little kind of area of muscle that can get really bunchy and bossy, and either it's going to be super sore or it's not, and you just want to check in with that, right? And then we can flip to our tummies at this point. We should be pretty much in the center of the roller, and you're just moving up and down the full length of your legs and thighs, which is getting into those big bossy muscles of our quadriceps. And if you just slightly tweak left or slightly tweak right and roll as well, you're going to get a little bit different sensation in those different parts of the leg. And then from that two-legged situation, you're just going to continue to roll in the direction you've been rolling onto the side or the corner of that second leg. So, and we're just kind of giving you a little sense of passing through these. You know, if you're finding that place that's a little tender, I want you to hang out there. You know, try to not avoid these places, because this is really your friend. It's going to restore you back after a practice, or, you know, like I said, if you've been sitting a long time, you might not realize that you have these sorenesses. And then you're moving from that side hip, and without having spent much time in the bum, we can go ahead and kind of roll through the fanny flesh, which is a lot of big muscles in there as well. And just having your body weight on the roller is what's actually being the massage tool. So if you've just continued to roll across that roller, you'll end up on the other leg, pretty much the way you started on the first leg. And what we've done is we've just used the roller and this turn of ourselves to get around all the leg hip muscles, which is why we call it a trip around the hip. And you've ended up on the other end of the roller. So let's just look at how we roll the spine. So for those of you that may not have done this, just a little quick and dirty on this. So you're pretty much going to use your legs to propel you. Your hands are behind your head just to kind of support the weight of it. And you really literally want to try to make as much of a full pass as possible, which is going to require you to move up and down the roller, maybe change where your hands are as you go, spend a little extra time in one particular area, and then you can do a nice arch over the roller, which will again open the chest and kind of use it as a extension tool, so we can encourage ourselves to come out of that nasty posture that we see sitting in the chairs at school or in the car. So that's a nice work up and down the spine. So that's how you're going to use the roller as your massage tool, your kind of your best friend. And then you're going to come to this little series we do where we're going to prop our hips up on top of the roller. Hands are going to come down along the either end of them, so we keep the roller from rolling away from us. And then you can go ahead and lift your legs right up and off and suspend them up to the ceiling. This can feel really nice. It kind of drains the blood flow down, and it also allows us to go to these straight legs. We're going to talk a little bit more about stretching in a moment, but you can go ahead and just kind of open the legs out to the side and kind of give them that nice wide stance, right? You can feel gravity. Esther's kind of pressing into those legs a little bit just to encourage the width. Do that a few times. In fact, why don't we go out to the side? Let's add the little froggy kick where you're going to come gathering your feet around, and then you're going to lower this like prayer-footed position. You're going to feel a little bit more stretch across the front of the hips in that kind of inner thigh area, and then you go back out to the sides and up, right? We're just going to do that a couple times. We're going to open, we're going to make a frog, right? We're kind of playing around with trying to open and stretch and creating whatever kind of little maneuvers you want to up here. And then let's go up, come up to the top and move in this other direction where we're going to scissor the legs, literally like a pair of scissors, and just give it a little bit of a pulse and a pulse. And I would say emphasize the stretch. So you could pause here for a moment, right? Kind of pull on a leg a little bit, reach the other one in the opposite direction, right? You're looking for the sensation of stretching and really trying to like go into a place that's different than what you normally do. Literally, we're trying to offer you all these other possibilities, right? So from that, let's actually go right into the little helicopter, right? So you're gonna go into your scissor, forward, front, and then left leg's gonna go left and right leg's gonna go right, and you're gonna come back to the opposite scissor and then pass through. So literally, it gets its name because your legs are like the propellers on a helicopter. So if you could imagine that for yourself. And then you want to make sure you switch your direction and move in the opposite direction. Good. And again, we're just trying to kind of create more movement space in our hips. If again, you're that person who's super noodly, then you might actually have to give it a little bit of strength and integrity to that, and use it more of as a strength tool. So from this knee bending place, we're going to work into a little bit of a twist. So you're going to kind of glue your legs together and then twist them together as you move across the roller. You're going to feel that come right across the back of the high hip and bum. Feel a little bit of a massage across those muscles. And then from here, you're going to go into the twist over to one side, and you're going to start to stretch both legs out, but maintain your integrity. Fold them back in, roll across. Right. So it may not seem super hard. It's not hard at all. It's just a matter of if you're having that combination of both stretch and length and integrity and strength. Okay. So these are the things that I'm interested in getting you guys to get to familiar with in your own bodies, because it's such a tool going forward for all those reasons that Esther mentioned. All right. So we're going to unweight, lift the hips up and off, lose the roller, and instead take a hold of your stretchy strap or your belt. Could be a TheraBand of some sort, something you have around the house. And we're going to really teach you some principles of stretching. You're going to bring your one leg in toward you. Knee can start bent for just a moment. Here you are pretty much in your scissor idea, right? The two thighs opposing each other. And I'm going to say, can you keep that left bum reaching down toward the other leg, right? So that you're not like in the biggest stretch ever, but there's some integrity to it. And then you're gonna unfold the leg at the place where you are able to still maintain that integrity, right? So that for you might be out here, might be a little lower. I know if it was my 15-year-old, it'd be down here. But nonetheless, you're trying to improve that range of the hip. So maybe you lower it some, you go, okay, I can really get that idea going. And then when I exhale and bring the leg toward me to give this line a stretch, you're also working that alignment principle, right, which actually gives you a better stretch. And we're just moving kind of to and fro from that. Little bit of relief, because being in that stretch for a super long time can be kind of intense. So instead, we're going to go ahead and move it into yet another line where we're going to open the leg. And again, for those of you that are a little noodly, right, you're going to be a little tippy, a little floppy. So I need you to kind of pull that integrity back together, use a little strength, a little control, and see if you can take this stretch and make it more of a stretch in a way that has and like an architecture to it. And once we've done a few there to the side, we're going to come across the body. And I always like to say, reach further than you think. Now this is a line on the side of the leg, and then you come back to center. And again, you're doing a couple of repetitions of this so that it's not just a stay and hold thing, but it's actually really quite active. But this outer hip is going to be addressed as we do that. And then if we kind of put these together, this is something I call the D rings, where you're going to make a capital D with the leg and foot and heel, and you're going to circle down. And at that moment, I want you to go super long to the other leg, and then you're going to come up the middle, right? So you're making this capital D around like a semicircle, and then exhale up the center. And you're going to do that a few times. Now, her hand and arm and the strap are really a guide, right? We're going to do 2 more of these, maybe a total of 5. Right? And so it's a guide more than like an arm exercise. When we reverse, we go down the straight line And then we do the little semicircle back to home. Wherever your home is, where you can take a little bit of inventory for yourself and check in with your alignment principles, because by now they've probably already gone away, because that's how it works in our bodies. So we're constantly having to pay attention and be mindful of how we're moving. And last one of those, so again, about 5 in each direction. And good. So of course you're gonna do the other leg. Just give yourself some time to finish up that other side and then meet us back here on the mat. All right, welcome back to this last section, well, almost last section of the kit, where we're gonna work on some strength, which is really designed, this is all taken from the Pilates method, which is something I teach a lot of to young and old and all different age groups. And it's really, I think, a useful skill base and set of exercises that will help us maintain this piece of machinery that we've been given when we were born. And we just want to see if we can really give it maintenance and understand how it works, and practice these different movements that now that we're moving maybe into, sports in particular that we really love, or we're focused on certain activities, we kind of start losing some of the other movements that we do. So this is kind of putting the whole package, the whole palette together. One of the mainstays of Pilates is breathing, and it's actually one of the mainstays of our entire life. And it's the first thing we come out with, and it's the last thing we end with. So it's something we really want to be able to own and understand and feel. So I'm just going to do a small segment on that. You want to find yourself seated comfortably. For those of you that have a difficult time sitting upright, just know that if you were to throw a little pillow up underneath, a little bolster, that might help you find that posture that we had earlier with Esther, then feel free to do that. If that's something you want to come off of, Esther, that's fine. But I want you to recognize and maybe use as a visual is that that's what you ought to look like from hips up through waist and ribs and shoulders, neck and head. Okay, so you're really achieving that plumb line. That's just another way of seeing how when Esther pulled that band out to show how we stack up, right? So there you are, you're upright in that position, seated, and we're just gonna take a nice breath in through the body, where you experience your rib cage moving in a kind of an opening fashion and a closing fashion. Again, just another visual for yourselves. And if it helps for you to close your eyes while you do this, this is totally fine. But it's almost like a pump, right? Like our breathing mechanism is like a pump, and we have to fill, so that when we actually pump the air out, we're getting something from that, right? From here, let's just have you practice when you go to bad posture and just kind of fall into that. Is it easy to breathe that way? Not if it's condensed and compressed like that. So we're gonna actually use the breath to bring ourselves back up to this nice vertical line. So I like to think of my inhale as a vertical line and my exhale as a nice kind of squeezing around my middles, right? So that's what you're trying to use to lift you up out of and give you that postural lift, okay, is gonna be your breath naturally. So we're gonna use that as kind of our constant throughout these next exercises. So let's shift now. Knees will be bent, feet will be on the floor, you're gonna stay upright, and we're gonna move into a little bit of our rollbacks, okay? So starting with your hands on your legs, they can shift and move on your legs as necessary, but the very first action, other than your breathing and your lift, is gonna be down low in the pelvis. So this is where we want that dial of being able to kind of pin those sitting bones up the backs of the legs, and as you start to roll back, you'll notice your arms will lengthen, and your hands will maybe slide to the sides of your thighs, and then you're gonna pause there. Check your posture in the context, of the shape, right? So yeah, she needs to stand down on her feet so you don't tip over. And then I want you to practice taking your hands off your legs and in this curved posture, still having the sense of posture inside of it. Can you still breathe smoothly? Like we illustrated with our little breathing toy. And then on this next one, you're gonna roll yourself back up to sitting, okay? So that's kind of the simple version of that. So then we're just gonna kind of increase it, go about it the same way, kind of start from those hips that are dialing under, and I'm just gonna say draw your navel back toward your spine. You should feel a nice gap opening here, and this is where it starts to get a little heavy. You feel like you wanna fall through your posture. So use a little bit of help from your hands and see if you can improve kind of that sense of lift, even though your posture has a bend to it. And again, you're gonna lift your hands up and off without disturbing. And then we're gonna practice the breath here. We're gonna inhale, lift both arms upward, navel to spine, circle the arms if you want, and come around. So this is gonna be that vertical breath, and then arms circle and come in, okay? And you'll wanna lift high. You wanna get up to do this because it's easier up there. So let's back it up down a little bit further, right? And see if you can do it while you're in this level. So now you're gonna be starting to feel your abdominal muscles. I want you to feel how your hips participate, and just one last one of these. At any point, you have the opportunity to come all the way back up and restack your posture to vertical. So now we're gonna take that same start. We're gonna go all the way to the floor, right? And as she descends, she's still motivating this from her hips. We call it the powerhouse in Pilates. And then you can lift the arms. They're gonna go overhead while maintaining kind of a nice quiet posture in here. And then we'll take a full roll up. I'll go ahead and be your little anchor here. And as you roll up, like, can you have a sense of lift and length in this? For some of you, you're gonna go, oh, this is like doing sit-ups. I can do like 100 of them, right? I would rather you do like 5 good, long, lifted, breathing, postural like sit-ups than doing 100 crunches. So that's your roll up, and from here you're gonna stay seated, and once again, if you need to sit up on that little bolster, fine, but you're gonna open your legs and we're gonna move into something called spine stretch. The key really is to come and go from that really good posture. So it might require you to just kind of softly bend your knees a little bit. I'd be okay with that, but if you can, lengthen them out, reach through those heels, arms are lifted, and like a gigantic wave, white capping over the top, she's gonna bend and round her posture again, right? And then from those hips, much like you saw me do a rolling up standing, she's gonna exhale and curve over. And then let's just put your palms on the mat. So for some of you, as you take an extra exhale, you can just kind of work into the back of the leg, getting a little bit more of a stretch. If there's a sense of kind of an anchor down through those sitting bones, this is where we get that spine stretch. Super nice for the whole body. And then you're gonna roll all the way up. And let's go ahead and we're gonna take this into the saw. So arms are gonna open like an airplane, and you're gonna take a twist around, and then you're gonna curve right on over, exhaling. One arm goes forward, one arm goes back. Nice, she's got the little twist of the head. Here she's listening to me from behind her, and exhale, curve over. We're trying to, and for those of you that might be swimmers, right? To me, this reminds me of like when you do the freestyle stroke and you need to do a little breath up out of the water, right? And there's a little bit of twisting, quite a bit of twisting that goes on when you swim. So those of you that do that might be able to relate. We'll just do one more set. Meantime, I have kind of a nice quiet hip. Yeah, that was nice. And as you finish this last one, as the right arm and the front arm goes forward, really try to pick up that under back arm and twist around your spine like a barbershop pole. Good. From here, you're gonna take your arms out to the side and up to behind your head. Nice. And you wanna feel yourself, and I'm kind of being that wall for her, but now we're gonna side bend to the right. Think of your right elbow as maybe trying to touch the floor and then return. Now, some of you might actually be able to touch the floor over there, right? But as we get older, like Esther and I, that gets a little harder. So wouldn't it be nice if you could keep the side bending ability for yourself, both on the way over in what looks like the stretch, but it's actually quite a bit of strength now from here to pick yourself up. And we'll finish with one last one over to the right. Good. So there we've done quite a lot of different actions of the spine, front, side, twisting, super yummy on that. Scoot your buns forward and we'll move into something called the hip circles or can-can. And I've chosen this one because I want you to practice having your arms behind you, which is gonna be you actually taking your shoulder blades and drawing them together back here, like I'm kind of gathering or ruching your t-shirt back there. And that's gonna lift your chest. And it's gonna, right, that would be typical. So if you were gonna hang out and watch some TV, show us that. That's like falling into the shoulder joint, just asking for a problem to happen, or maybe it already has. So lift up out of that, feel strong on your backside. And let's just practice sliding both legs forward. And then you can see she's got a sense of her posture. She's standing out in her feet. And I'm gonna have you keep all of this while you bend both knees toward you. Yeah, you're gonna hopefully be able to slide them on your floor and then slide them back out. Now this is gonna happen down here while this stays quiet. So just practice that a couple times. So I think Esther used the word disassociation, like you can do one thing in one end and stabilize on the other. This time you're gonna bring the legs in, you're gonna unload them from the mat, and then you're gonna stretch them upward without sinking, right? And bend both knees in. So it's possible that your legs don't go very high or they don't straighten the whole way. But the idea is that though this end is moving upward, you're energetically lifting up and through that posture. Good. From here, keep both knees bent and take them into a twist, kind of rolling across your bum. And over to the other side, rolling across your bum. Third time. And then like we did on the roller, you're going to stretch your legs out, lift the heart chest, bend the knees in. So you have 3 twists. 1, 2, third twist, you stretch the legs out and come in. Now, that's all good and well, but what's going on up on top? And are you able to stay active through your upper back? Last 1, 2, 3, and good. Great. Okay, so that's it on your fanny like this. Let's go ahead and flip on your tummies. And earlier Esther mentioned, you know, sometimes your back might hurt because it's tired. There's lots of reasons your back could hurt actually, but I have found with my own 15-year-old, oh mom, my back hurts, you know, it just feels like I can't hold myself up. So we're gonna try to work on building some of those backside body muscles. We've already been talked through this hip work, so I want you to go right to that, some of those skills we learned earlier. And let's actually, Esther, come right into the swan. So you're gonna place your palms by your shoulders. You're gonna pin your little fanny down to your thighs to give that lower back some length. And then we're gonna begin to work our hinge that we had earlier. And we're gonna try to undulate the spine, bending it in its reverse order. It looks like the reverse roll-up. And then lower back down. We call it the swan. Those of you that do some yoga, you might recognize this very similar to cobra. It's really not dissimilar. We talk about it slightly differently perhaps, but you know, the idea is the same, that you're trying to expand the chest through the plane of the arms in front of, engage the whole back line, including those hips and legs, right? And you can see, we'll just have her do one more with us, where you're gonna inhale up that vertical line of the body, lift and lengthen out of the neck, and on the exhale, without collapsing, like you're getting squeezed around to get rid of all that air. So from here, just leave your forehead lightly on the mat, your nose, whatever hits there first, and spread your arms wide to the side like you were an airplane. Right, already has the arms lifted, and I want you to punch those fists out to the sides, and then if you want to unfold your fingers, super nice, but the goal here is to really feel like you're going to the edges of the room. I want you to do your hitchhiker's thumbs, and you're going to spin your hitchhiker thumb up like you want to go somewhere, and then you're going to spin your hitchhiker thumb down. No bueno. And then hitchhiker thumb up. That's it. And hitchhiker thumb down. So here you're just using your shoulder, external rotational, internal rotational, until the last one you're going to end up with your hitchhiker thumbs up, and then you're going to take your airplane wings and glide them forward, up toward like a capital Y, and then all the way forward up into what's a capital I. And then we're going to move as we inhale back out to our airplane. You could actually bring them all the way down to your hips and then turn those thumbs inward. First thing you do is turn the thumbs outward. You travel your airplane wings and you try to go long. Like this is super long body. Again, for you swimmers, you might feel like you've just kicked off the edge of the pool and you're trying to do your initial glide before your stroke. Good, so a few of those. Then I want you to end back up into your T, right, where you're your airplane, and we're gonna do a little twist or a little soar. So you're gonna take those arms, lift them, reach them like crazy and twist to one direction. Allow that opposite palm to maybe find the floor for a second, and then, good, twist. So I alluded to our twist earlier being like rotating your trunk like a barbershop pole. I'm purposefully here on her legs to keep them quiet so that you're not flipping and rolling off your hips. Right, again, just working these upper back, middle back, lower back, twisters, kind of fun. And we're just gonna move into pinning our little seat down onto our thighs. We're gonna double leg lift, just barely, and reach, and you're gonna open the legs the width of your mat and close them back up, okay? You're gonna do that a few times. And while you do this, you wanna open, breathe up your long, tall straw, and exhale, give it a nice squeeze all the way up high in those inner thighs, exactly. And then as you do this, you could kind of pick up your tempo. Breathe in for a few of those, and breathe out for a few of those. You wanna not let the tension build anywhere else, but kind of low on the body. Maybe you've done 3 breaths of that. Bring them together, and then lower them down with control, and give yourself a little rest from all of that. We're gonna sit back onto your heels. Some of you may know this is called child's pose if you do some yoga. And regardless of its name, it's just a really nice place to be. Kind of let those hips sit nicely on those heels. And then we're just gonna shift back forward onto all fours or into our cat or dog-like position here. I want your legs to be directly underneath your hips, your arms directly underneath your shoulders, and then just creating this nice tabletop of a spine. And recognize, like, are you that person that kind of sinks and falls through? Like, take a couple moments and figure out, like, what if I have to push the floor away and see if I can't find how it feels like to me. I have to resist gravity, which wants to just push me down here. So I have to nestle my ribs right up and toward my scapula, find my head and neck long. And then from this place, we're just gonna go ahead and slide the right leg or one leg back behind you. And when it's lifted up off the floor, you've got to keep yourself from sinking and sagging. And then we're gonna return the leg. So this is kind of the leg version of that single-armed one we did earlier, where we were practicing our 3 points of contact. And this little balancing act that you're doing with yourself requires you to constantly navigate the integrity of the rest of you in your posture, right? So those of you that do some balance sports, could be gymnastics, could be slacklining, right? This is great work for you. And then we're gonna add the single leg out and the single arm, opposite arm out. And they're gonna move together back home in a nice controlled fashion. So it's not just the going in the one direction that's important, but it's actually the return. So use your breathing as kind of your phrasing, where you inhale in one direction and then exhale, gather it together. We'll just do one more together. And good, nicely done, till you're back home. So from here, let's go ahead and practice tucking the toes under. And every time you make a little adjustment, you have to like re-navigate, re-find your integrity of your posture. And we're gonna do something called floating cat. So you're gonna unload your knees from the mat, just barely. It's like when a runner gets started to go out of their blocks, right? Get set. And then you're gonna be there and see like what happened up here. Did we sink and fall? Are we like shaking? It's okay if you're shaking, but I want you to go ahead, sit down, lower, and let's kind of recheck in with that. We'll do this another time. Your goal in this little exercise is to be here and breathe calmly for a few breaths. I always say, don't panic, don't go crazy on me, don't show me this is hard, and keep activating by pushing the floor away with your hands, nestling those ribs even up by your necklace or your collarbones. And then when you're done with that, you can lower down, untuck the toes, maybe take another sit back on the heels. Good, check in with your wrists. And I'd like to just finish by taking that floating cat idea and putting it out into a plank. So this would be kind of the next step, right? You could start it right here from your floating cat, in fact. So tuck the toes under, unload, check in with the upper body, and when you send the leg back, you're gonna be on the balls of your feet. I like to hug my heels together like we did in standing footwork earlier. And then there's just a lot more to manage. There's more weight out from underneath you. You've got to imagine there's these pillars all the way up underneath. Good. Even underneath your throat, maybe even into your eye sockets. And you're just taking a few breaths to practice being in that strong plank. And when you're done with that, you can lower the knees down. And for those of you that want to go into push-ups there, that's great. I have a whole can of worms we could work on in another kit. But I think most importantly, I think you can really start to build some upper body strength in that plank position. All right, now we're going to move on to your side. So Esther, why don't you come onto your left side? The rest of you can do the same. I want you to line yourself up in one long line. You have your hand underneath your head, but once again, not as though you're going to be watching TV for a while where you're just kind of like sinking and sagging, but you want to kind of feel a little perky in that position. And then once your legs are long, you're just going to cock them forward a little bit at an angle at that hip hinge. Otherwise, you want to recognize that one hip is directly stacked over the other hip. And for those of us that are a little more curvy, we don't want to sink and fall into this space. And instead, you're going to use some of your core muscles that wrap around you so that you can feel a little bit of that lift. From here, we're going to practice little long leg lifting. And I have my hand here at her hip, and I want you to feel like when you go to lift that top leg, you're like trying to make a little right-handed turn at that hip socket that we located earlier. Right, I'll time that with an inhale and then exhale lower. So a few times, this is really working the strength of this outer hip. And then let's keep it up and let's take a few of those small circles. It's like you're waxing your car with the sole of your foot, you know, wax on, wax off. I don't know, that movie's probably a little too old for you guys. But nonetheless, you're making like basketball-sized circles with the sole of your foot. Then at the top of that circle, you're gonna pause, and I'm gonna have you reach the heel a little extra, and then you're gonna turn like you're pivoting at your heel center. And then you're gonna turn, and you're gonna pivot at your heel center inward. It's a little bit like hitchhiker thumb up and hitchhiker thumb down. Exactly. So we're working the rotational feature, another great hip exercise, and we can turn that into rainbow, where we're gonna hitchhiker thumb up, heel down, hitchhiker thumb in, toe down, and just alternate front side and back side. Exactly, super nice. The side lying work is a lot about this hip work. Let's go ahead and bring heel forward, and let's do a little développé. So those of you that are dancers, you'll just kind of love this part, and you're gonna go upward to the sky with a straight leg. Those of us that are not dancers get to be a dancer for a day, right? So you're gonna bend the knee, extend up, and lower down. And if there's any tightness in your hips, this is gonna be hard. And that's okay, you're gonna reverse that. So you're gonna go up with the leg, you're gonna bend in and slide down. But again, see if you can take a little inventory of your posture and maybe even your breathing, which will help your posture, and back down. Good. So that's a little side lying series. I think we'll leave that there and come onto your back. So I'd like for you to make sure you do that other side. Okay, so that's not just a one-sided thing. So again, you just have to kind of go back on your download, take the time to do that, and then join us back for this last little part for this segment, which is fun. It's called the teaser. And you're gonna bring your feet into your band or your strap, or if you've worked your way long enough into this little kit, maybe you're just doing it without the band. But it's like you're got little chariot straps, or maybe your reins if you're a horse rider. And so from here, you're gonna stand down in the strap this direction. You're gonna go long through your tummy in this direction. And we're gonna do that wave-like curve, which when the head lifts up, you work through that hinge of the head neck. And the wave-like curve is also then working with this opposition of suspending up through the legs. This is where we go in and iron out from the middle to your end points. So you could think of this as an end point thing coming up and in, right? You should certainly feel your center. I want to have navel back towards spine so that you're not rocking or tipping forward and dropping those legs. And for those of you that have really long legs, this you might need a little more extra help, because I just find that lever, if it's too long, if it's so long out there, this is a much different exercise for you than it is for me or Esther, let's say. All right, so maybe you've done 3 of those. On your 4th one, we'll come up and we'll transition into one of our last little exercises here, where when you bend your knees, you can unload the strap, place the feet down if you need to, or just balance. And you're going to take a hold of your shin bones, kind of gather in small and tight like a little ball. And as you rock back on that pelvis without slumping or slouching, still with the sense of that posture up through your curves, you're going to inhale, breathe to roll back, and exhale to come home. So you're going to kind of try to time. It's like doing a somersault without flipping over the backside, okay? You'll notice really we're just rocking from tail to maybe even just shoulder blades. I don't want you to whack your head back there, right? This is like a little party trick. And if you were to do this on a balance beam, you'd be trying to stay right on the center of that balance beam. I could never do that myself, but it's kind of what I think about when I do this. The last one of these, good. That's that next phase where you're just trying to do the ball without holding on. So if you want to give that a little try, good. All right, so that one should be kind of fun, should feel good on your spine, as long as you don't have any flat tires, right? So you want to see if you can, what you can do in your torso to keep that nice curve and round, as well as that lift. So this has been your section to actually kind of bite the bullet, build a little strength, build a little knowledge and integrity in how you move, and give it some strength to try to help fill in the gaps of your life, because this is really an exercise system for life. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Pick and choose as you wish, and we'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, so this is a kind of a fun little section. We pulled out the fit ball. You might consider this good for party tricks. The first thing I want to say about your fit ball is, as we're sitting here, how you fit on your fit ball is kind of relevant, particularly if you use it to sit at your desk and you have one at home. I encourage you to do that, actually, because if you have a computer chair and you're just kind of nestled in your computer chair, that really does nothing for you. So I encourage my teenager to sit up on his ball and use some of the postural muscles that just need to occur by sitting here. But you'd like to look at seeing these 90-degree angles. So shin bone to knee, and then thigh coming in leads to another 90-degree angle. If anything, this is maybe slightly smaller, slightly deflated ball for Esther. So if it came up just a little bit, I just don't want you sinking down in here. It's hard to sit up tall that way. And you can, noodle around in there and even give it a little bit of a bounce, really healthy for your spine. But the little things we're going to do here, like I said, are party tricks. You can see if your friends can do this. You can grab a friend and do it with you. We're going to do a little walk forward, right? And she's doing that same curl under, arms are a counterbalance, and then you're going to give yourself this big back extension, which this is what most people have a fit ball for, right? So you may as well use it, right? And then from here, you're going to sequence or transition back up into what I would call a seated roll-up. She has to motivate the legs to go back. You come up to sitting, and you're just going to come and go from that with a little bit of those same techniques that we used when we were on the mat, okay? So don't go away from that stuff. Just practice them here, right? In just a little bit more fun setting. Your body's having to navigate being on the ball and, not falling off. We'll just do one more together. And certainly when you're in this arch and extension, lots of things. You can play with the straightening and bending of your legs. That changes where the ball is on your back, gives you that nice extension. And then to finish that roll up, coming up to a very nice, tall, seated, good posture that we saw earlier. So now this is the fun one. You need lots of space for this. So we're going to bring Esther to this end of the room. The ball's just going to kind of come into those inner legs. The knees will be wide. You'll feel a little bit like that froggy. And you're just, pasted over the ball. And then you're going to look down your runway. You're going to push off with your feet. And you're going to walk your hands out forward till the ball comes a little bit more underneath your shins, right? At which point, legs together, you're going to lower the head into your head hinge. And you're going to come up into a pike. Head starting, and you're using those abdominals Re-find your plank. Maybe give yourself a little bit of a push-up, not a huge one. Exhale, press back up. And now you're going to do the knee curl, Esther. So you're going to do a little bit of a pike, but you're going to roll all the way into the child's pose, back out. And you're going to walk your hands back down the runway. And then you got to find your way back into your little froggy stance. Okay? You're going to start that again. So you push off your feet out into your plank. Stay active in your cat and do your head neck hinge. And roll, undulate up into a high pike. Re-find your plank, hug your legs. A little bit of a push-up without collapsing. And then the knee roll is a lift so you can really tuck all the way in, lengthen out, walk, 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 walk back. Last one together, okay? So we go flying out the runway with a certain amount of control. We go up into the pike. Lengthen back out, good control. Little push up and back up into your knee roll and then back out to your plank and back home. And hopefully you're about in the same spot you were in your room before. So there's just some fun, good movement skills on your ball. We'll do a couple of other ones. We're just going to need a little wall space. So meet us over at a wall and you'll see how we set up for that too. All right, so hopefully you found a wall space that you want to really use it for your feet most importantly. So I suppose it doesn't have to be a wall, but something where you can situate your feet against the wall with your kind of the balls of the feet tucked under, which I think is the best solution. The ball is going to come kind of right in where your pelvis is. And then if you were to extend your legs, you'd just be kind of draped over the ball, and you can decide kind of how much you drape. If you bring the ball a little higher, you'll drape a little less. But the key here is that you want to engage those little buttons down the backs of the legs. Activate through the legs, feel those heels nicely standing in the wall in this situation. And then just practice being able to come up with your trunk so that maybe your trunk comes into the same line as your legs, and then your neck comes into the same line and your head comes in the same line. Super nice. And though her arms are down, I don't think they're doing a lot of work. Look, Mom, no hands, right? So, and then go ahead and lower down off of that. But where my hands are here down in her base of her hips, that's kind of where the power is coming from. Her back muscles are working strongly. And then you could play with, look, Mom, no hands. Right. So you're hopefully having a good anchor, right? Exactly. So that might be where the ball, to bring the ball a little forward. Exactly. There you go. And then let's do our third one together. So lowering down, heels connecting, nice anchor into the wall. Then she's got those free hands. She's going to take them out to the side like she did her T. And she could play a whole lot with that whole segment, up and out of the T. And then you could go into your Y. And as you go further forward, you have to work harder down low in the base. And then back out to the Y and out to the T and down everything. So you could kind of put all that together and create some kind of piece of choreography for yourself. And I think the thing you're going to notice is that you're a little wobbly on the ball, which you're going to have to negotiate for yourself with those core muscles. And I would say particularly a strong leg base, right? Inner thigh base. So it's all right if you're wobbling. That's the whole point, right? Like we said, party tricks. And back, down. Good. So that works that whole back line of the body, again, to strengthen your back, your butt, your legs, your shoulders, all those pieces. So the last little thing we'll do here at the wall with the ball is something on the side. It's actually kind of the same idea. So to situate yourself for this, you're going to bring your under leg forward on the baseboard, your top leg a little bit behind. The ball, again, is kind of at hip, pelvis, maybe slightly low waist. And then you're going to do a little double knee bend and kind of tuck that top knee in behind the back of the front knee, okay? The whole point of that is to make you feel a little more solid. And then you're going to go ahead and, again, hold on to that experience down low, and then you're going to work over the ball and give that whole side body a stretch now, and whatever feels good. She's got her arms long in this case, but you could also put your hands behind your head, or you could make an airplane, and you're going to do your side bend work, where she's got to lift up and off. This is where the ball really wants to kind of slip away from you, right? And I'm actually really not holding at all. So the little squirms that the ball makes underneath, you're trying to manage. And then if you're looking for something a little bit more, just reach this right arm down low by your thigh. Reach the underarm upward toward the sky. Ooh, good. Right, so she's just improving that range, and she could go back down. Let's just do one more of those. You know, so I don't want you to feel like you have to stick to, yeah, like, you know, play around with this a little bit, right? And down. Good. So of course, you would do that on the other side. I'll quickly talk you through how to do those legs. Okay, so it's the under leg that's going to come forward on the baseboard. It's the top leg that's behind. You have a pretty good stance, separating of those legs. And then there's that little kind of knee tuck or knee lock with a slight bend of the knee to enable that solidity down low. Now, while you're working your side bends, just keep in mind, we've talked a lot about how do you breathe. We've talked a lot about how do you organize your posture. And you're like, well, God, I'm not even in my straight posture. But you want to have the energy of your straight posture. Good. One arm comes down, the other arm goes reaching up high. Good. You want to feel as though you're giving yourself the work as well as the stretch. And we'll do one last one. I think you'll find these are actually a lot harder than they look. I'll give her a little assist. Up and out. And back, down, and through. Good. And just enjoy that stretch. Come off the ball. And so that's a little series, fun series on the ball. There's, of course, probably tons of other things you can do on it, of course. But enjoy some of those. Get your friends to come out and play, and see if the strength section can be some fun for you.
Okay, you guys, thanks for joining us for that. Hopefully you got to move in some different ways and can appreciate how your body is built and structured, and maybe some new appreciation on how to move your parts. If you are having individual areas with problems and pain, check out our other kits. We have kits for knee pain, hip pain, back pain, neck pain, and that does start to creep in even as a young adult. And a lot of that is because of how we are using our body in these modern lives, or maybe it's because you're an athlete. And so whether you're already moving a lot and this kit is kind of your restorative, filling in the gaps, as Eva said, or you don't move very much and this is like your introduction to kind of some exercise and some core work, it should work for all sorts of people and feel really good. So just be respectful of your own body and be appreciative of your own parts and how you move and how you look, and just know that you're perfect just the way you are. And get started with this now, because I bet you in a handful of years you'll look back and you'll say, I'm glad I had that kit, and I'm glad that those two told me how to, you know, stand and stack up, because over the years things start to add up. And so if you don't know it now, just trust us. Get started. So we hope that you can be your own body mechanic. We'll see you next time.